just having BlizzCon as the only chance to play against other regions, but we are right into the game. It will be pokrovac on the bottom of the screen against greensheep on the top, both playing warrior.
Yep, that's right. pokrovac comes in here as the #1 seed, was undefeated throughout the entire 7 rounds of Swiss, bringing a lineup that he prepared a lot with. Tice, actually. Tice was saying that, I really felt like I had a good lineup, and I'm not really, ashamed of bringing it to the tournament. And pokrovac brought the same exact lineup and went 7-0. So that ends up happening very often. You have practice groups who practice together, and maybe one guy does really well, and then maybe a couple other guys struggle a little bit, but overall you had a good idea and a good line. I'm pegging him as the favorite, but greensheep, he's got some really interesting strategies. He's bringing, for example, a rogue that focuses on being aggressive, like Shadow Step. He's got pirates like Buccaneer in the deck. How do you think that fares against a lineup that really try to target aggressive decks?
Yeah, greensheep's lineup is actually very similar to RDU's. It's a very aggressive lineup that, obviously, going up against a lineup that is specifically trying to beat aggressive decks may struggle. But even if you're trying to beat a certain deck or strategy, as we've seen throughout the weekend, it can backfire. So greensheep had his Sir Finley Murgleton early, only picked up a Dagger Mastery, which is kind of one of the middle tier hero powers that you might be looking for, while pokrovac, he's got a number of options. He has the Life Tap, which could be used if the game does go longer and ends up having attrition be a factor. Shapeshift can give him some interaction on the board, as well as a bit of armor. I think he's going to take Totemic Call.
Yeah, Totemic Call only in the very desperate situations where you need a Taunt Totem or spell damage. I would very infrequently see that. Just want to clarify the bans for both these players here. Greensheep has banned the Mage from pokrovac. Pokrovac banned the Shaman, I believe. Oh, no, sorry, the other way around. Pokrovac has banned Mage, Greensheep has banned Shaman. And, it makes sense there because pokrovac is trying to target the aggressive decks. So he's trying to make sure that he can hit the, avoid the control decks. And then Greensheep, of course, is banning Shaman because that's just really powerful.
Shaman ban has been very common throughout the course of the tournament, though we've seen a great variety in terms of the bans throughout this event, which I think is great, because oftentimes you'll have a format where it's like, okay, well, you banned this because it's just the best deck. But I think that a lot of players have come with strategies and developed lineups that are solid enough against what they think most people will be playing, and they're able to leave those very strong decks up, like Aggro Shaman. We've seen a lot of players just end up getting swept with their aggro Shaman deck losing every game.
Yeah, and it seems like Pirate Warrior, we've been seeing it so commonly, but how do you feel like its results have been in the tournament so far? Because pokrovac, it looks like he's just gonna coin out this Bloodsail Cultist, and sometimes you get these awkward scenarios. You don't get to get the ideal weapon lineup to be able to get the +1/1.
Yeah, Pirate Warrior, I think, has actually done quite well when we've generally seen it on camera. It has a lot of different ways that it can be effective. It can either be sort of just a straight rushdown deck, but most of the versions that we've seen have tended to be, I believe, the South Sea Captain versions, which can also generate a big board presence and make it very difficult for the opponent to win even through just gaining life.
As you can see, this is a strategy that actually happens a lot in Pirate Warrior mirrors, where you're trying to conserve the actual timing which patches comes out. Because I think if you throw out patches very early on, you're giving a lot of tempo away to your opponent if they're able to answer with a very clean 1/1 kill themselves, whether they're using Nizal's First Mate, if they're using a simple upgrade dagger or axe, excuse me. So you really want to make sure to conserve resources. We've seen people pass on turn 1 despite having multiple plays, just so that way they can make sure to seize the tempo correctly. Because if you get ahead and you're able to leverage your weapon, you can run away with the game.
Yeah, I think that Pirate Warrior kind of gets a bad rap. A lot of people, they play against Pirate Warrior on ladder. It seems like it's totally scripted. They just play whatever they have. Look at this game, though. pokrovac just passed with Small Time Buccaneer. Not going to play it. He wants to hold it to ensure that it doesn't just get eaten up without a weapon to actually buff it.
Yeah, except the problem is now he's got bigger issues at hand. It's not even necessarily about the Small Time Buccaneer not getting value, but his opponent's threatening a lot of damage on board, and he spends his entire turn simply removing a one-mana taunt that was played. So greensheep very far ahead now, and he's got a huge amount of board presence coming out here with the South Sea Captain buffing the Bloodsail Cultist. That thing's not dying, and pokrovac is running out of health here.
Yeah, this is kind of the volatility of the Pirate Warrior deck. pokrovac has not found a weapon. He's sitting there with the Buccaneer, with the Dread Corsair. He finally did find a weapon in that N'Zoth's first mate, but it's just too little too late here. He's able to get a couple of minions in play, but he can't play everything. He doesn't have enough of a discount to play the Corsair and the Deckhand and the Buccaneer.
Yeah, and I think this is the dividends that greensheep has for being able to just properly budget his resources in the early game. Because with the way aggro matchups do tend to line up is that the early turns are so imperative to play absolutely flawlessly. And if you do, then you're paid off with a relatively easier mid game because your advantage snowballs. But it's very hard sometimes to make sure that you play everything correctly because, like you said, it's very volatile. It's one little damage mistake. Trading off the 1/1 improperly could cost you the game.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about snowball effects
Right.
in Hearthstone, and this is the sort of matchup which has exactly that. If you end up leaving up just one minion that you could have killed, or trading and not getting the maximum efficiency, leaving a minion with too much health for you to be able to deal with easily, it can really come back and haunt you.
And so in this case, greensheep still firmly ahead here. Pokrovac is going to be working in single digits of health. Going to be really tricky for him to win from this position. I feel like it's not impossible because their deck's not really known for taunts. You have the Dread Corsair to stall, but you're stalling the inevitable here because it feels like there's so much more damage coming in from greensheep.
Yeah, pokrovac is basically just behind on every axis of the game right now. He's behind on board, he's behind on life. He's got some cards in hand, but they're not really going to do nearly enough to take care of greensheep's aggression.
Yeah, so greensheep coming out with a strong win here. Looking at the rest of greensheep's lineup, it's actually not completely aggressive as been touted prior to the series. He does have a mid-range Jade Shaman, which I really like to be included. If you guys haven't heard us, hyping up the mid-range Jade Shaman, we think that this deck is one of the decks to watch out for, not just today, but for the following week.
And while greensheep had things nearly locked up, the upgrade that he finds on the top of his deck gives him exactly lethal to finish up pokrovac and take a blistering game 1.
So the Pirate Warrior, how influential do you think it is in this series? Because some decks, they're almost inevitable to get a win in the series. Some people even think Shaman is like that. You just feel like, I can't guarantee always beat Shaman, so it's going to get a win. Is that the same case with Pirate Warrior? Because it seems like it's just so strong against the field that it's just going to get a win anyways.
Yeah, Pirate Warrior is a really tough deck to target because it just has such explosive potential that most decks can't reliably hope to contain everything it can do early on. Even Reno Mage, which is an excellent deck against Pirate Warrior, can sometimes just not draw the right cards early. You have a hero power that can kill some things, but if your opponent just has a South Sea Captain, Patches, bunch of stuff draw, and you don't have Volcanic Potion, you can just die.
It's true. I think even the win percentages, if you just look at some of the data that's out there, says that some of the hardest counters for Pirate Warrior is a 7-3 favorite.
Yeah.
And it's like that's still not even like super guaranteed. You need to have around an 80% win rate or higher to have an overwhelming win percentage against it in a format like Conquest, because you're trying to target one deck or maybe one archetype. Mm-hmm. And if a lot of people, they're transitioning away from aggro shaman. So if you're doing an anti-aggro strategy, you're really just reliably targeting Pirate Warrior, which
All right, well, greensheep on the screen, getting ready to get into the game, and here we are. It will be greensheep playing Shaman on the top of the screen with pokrovac playing Warlock.
That's right. So pokrovac, he loves Reno Lock. He says that Reno Lock is his favorite deck, or specifically just any kind of defensive, life tap oriented Warlock where you're trying to find the best control options and eventually fight for the board. So it even dates back to a hand lock style, which is life tapping a lot. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see him gravitate towards this deck in his lineup.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, greensheep playing the mid-range Jade deck. He has actually one of the very key cards in the matchup in his hand. That Bloodlust can end up being really important later on, simply because it can give you the ability to close out a game from any really even anemic-looking board. It can just represent tons of damage.
So looks like he's got some options here at his disposal. Are you favoring a Mistress, a Mixtures Mortal Coil, or a Dark Peddler?
Well, as soon as I saw that Mistress picked up, that has to look pretty appealing. It does contain the possibility of a Flame Tongue being a lot of damage, but the Mortal Coil is going to still have value later on, and pokrovac also wants to potentially gain some value life-wise with that Mistress of Mixtures as well.
All right, well, just want to remind you guys that the winner of the match is going directly to the Bahamas as they get top 4 from each region to compete for $250,000. So this is all on the line here. There's no second chance. Pokrovac is 7-0 in Swiss, but if he loses his first game here in the playoffs, that's it.
Yeah, we are in single elimination mode now in the tournament, and it is do or die time for these players. Pokrovac, this is an interesting play. A lot of times players don't like to play out another minion alongside a Doomsayer, but Pokrovac thinking here, okay, my goal here is if he spends a bunch of damage to kill this Doomsayer, I still want to have something alongside it to be able to help clean things up. But that Spirit Clause from Greensheep is going to be pretty important here. It does enable his Small Time Buccaneer, and along with this Flame Tongue Totem, gives him enough damage to take that Doomsayer out. And thanks to the patches, he can actually clear the entire board, including that Mistress of Mixture.
Yeah, so it works out pretty well here.
When Mana Tide Totem goes to war.
Yeah, actually, I don't even. I always wonder, like, what are some of the attack sounds of these normally, minions that can't attack at all, like Frog from Hex,
I think it's just.
Yeah, it always catches me off guard because I never expected it. Looks like Pokrovac not gonna even really be phased too much. Mana Tide Totem is one of the stronger cards in the control matchups, and that's where cards like Spellbreaker could end up playing a role here. Normally a card that's always debated. I'm never sure if Spellbreaker is a right inclusion in some of these decks, but in the control matchups, it can be pretty valuable.
It's also often very strong just against aggressive Shaman decks, thanks to just Flame Tongue Totem. Being able to eliminate a Flame Tongue Totem and develop a minion on the board can be really important. But Greensheep developing a bit more with that Jade Spirit. That always reminds me of Ric Flair from like old school like WWF. Woo! Whenever you play him.
I was born in the 90s,
now. I'm old. go YouTube Ric Flair woo, okay?
Oh man, I understand.
You won't regret it.
The only word I understand in that sentence is YouTube. But I'll have to go back and look at some of those videos. Pokrovac looks like he's picked up some decent choices here. Voidwalker is a stall mechanic. There is a couple of 1 health minions. And I'm looking at if there's a possibility of picking up some of those other minions like Flame Imp or Shield Bearer, because Flame Imp is one of the stronger minions too out of all of it.
Yeah, the problem is they just get traded into on the board. The Voidwalker could at least, if he did choose to play it this turn, which he does not, I think that Pokrovac is planning to set up a Fellfire Potion potentially, so he just wants to have the Voidwalker as a possible taunt later on.
Yeah.
But now Greensheep, thinking, okay, well, what is the one you took? You didn't play a 1-drop minion. What are the implications of that? Yeah. Because if Pokrovac had gotten a 1-drop, very likely he might have played a lot of them, but it will be a Azure Drake, so still extending the board for Greensheep, but not really costing him significant in terms of resources.
And even though you see things like Flame Imp have the strongest individual value, as the Fellfire Potion does for the board, Pokrovac's not running cards like Shadow Flame. So, usually the value of something like a Flame Imp, is, you trade off the health so you can get that power on the board, but so late into the game, it's not relevant. If you have Shadow Flame, it becomes relevant. In this case, he does not.
Yeah, there aren't many better cards to play when your board has been cleared than Aya Blackpaw. Pokrovac draws a Harrison Jones, which is certainly pretty nice to give him an answer to the weapon here, but I think he needs to deal with the board more than anything.
Yeah, he's at 14 health, so while Harrison Jones removing the weapon is nice, it's not the highest priority at the moment compared to just not dying.
Right.
There is a Bloodlust in the hand. How much damage does Greensheep have?
He can't quite punch through because of these 2 taunts. Bloodlust doesn't really get any damage in at the moment. He could Azure Drake, punch through the 4/3 attack in and get... He can only actually get 2 damage in here, really. He could roll for Spell Power with his Hero Power. If he did get Spell Power, then he could take out one of these minions with Bloodlust and get 8 through, which is not quite enough. I'm just going to go ahead and Azure Drake here.
Okay, well, I guess he's just Hero Powering, which is not the worst thing, because again, Hero Power not only synergizes with Bloodlust, but discounts the from below too. Yeah. And this is just the power of mid-range Shaman, which players who were part of the Karazhan meta know all too well.
And here Greensheep is debating whether he wants a Hero Power at all. And this is giving respect to the threat of a Mind Control tech.
Okay.
Because if he does Hero Power, then potentially Pokrovac could swing the game back if he had a Mind Control tech. So definitely just playing as cautiously as possible. Very high stakes for both these players.
I think you generally do want to hero power though, because of all the benefits it does with, with Bloodlust, with Thing from Below. And, it's very likely that Eye of Blackpaw drops. So if you only had 2 minions onto the board, Bloodlust is only +6, and a best case scenario, I think you generally want to set up to threaten your opponent as much as you can.
Yeah, and pokrovac definitely under a lot of threat here. And I mean, just look at Greensheep's hand. That Mana Tide Totem lived so long that even if pokrovac does weather this storm right now, there's a lot more threats coming.
It's true. There is an opportunity to heal for 8 on pokrovac's side. He has Brand and Refreshment Vendor. And of course that Voidwalker, one of his techs to kill aggro decks. Does he end up using it here? Looks like he's feeling confident to just stay alive on 13 health here. So if you calculate how much damage, looks like Greensheep's 1 mana off from being able to completely punish his opponent here.
Yeah, if he had the ability to play Bloodlust and that Jade Lightning, that would be enough damage to close out the game, but not quite here. But again, he just has a fistful of powerful cards, can just keep the Jade train rolling. And pokrovac, he's going to run out of ways to actually kill all these minions. Eventually, Bloodlust is going to stick and kill them.
The theory of Jade in general against Reno decks is that Reno tends to play pretty slowly, and Jade gets perfect amount of time to space out their threats. Yes, Reno decks have area of effect cards. Yes, they have good target removal, but there's only so much time that you can stall for before the dam breaks.
And it's particularly powerful with cards that create multiple minions, like the Jade Spirit, the 2 Jade Chieftains in Greensheep's hand. Even if pokrovac, say, had Twisting Nether here. Twisting Nether clears the board, but you just reload it, and then you get to play Jade Chieftain, hero power. Okay, suddenly Bloodlust is threatening lethal again. So just absolutely huge ability to present threat after threat.
Yeah, no Twisting Nether, and now pokrovac is really feeling the pinch of having no Shadow Flame in the deck either. It's a card that's phenomenal against mid-range Shaman, and just not able to get it. One thing that's also interesting is that Reno Warlock, according to the data spreadsheet, is the only deck that has a winning matchup against mid-range Jade Shaman currently, and pokrovac might be even dropping that.
A lot of that has to do with the specific card choices as well, because pokrovac is playing a little bit of a different version. He does have that Fellfire Potion, which is very important, and we see he's in desperate straits. He is going for a 1 mana spell with the Kazakus. He finds exactly what he wanted, so he's able to use the 3 damage to 1 minion, 2 damage to all minions to clear off nearly everything from this board. But yeah, the Bloodlust plus Jade Lightning still is going to be enough. Greensheep is going to punch through and take a 2-0 lead in the series.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking for, and this is also a tough situation because pokrovac really wanted to kill a lot of these aggressive decks with Reno Warlock, but we were mentioning the mid-range Shaman is so good at a lot of those matchups, and you're not necessarily playing into those aggressive strategies. pokrovac is devastated because now Greensheep only has to win with his Rogue deck, which, by the way, once again, it's not a conventional Rogue deck that you're used to. We only say, wow, Rogue can only play Miracle Rogue, can only play that combo-oriented style with Questing Adventurer. Not really the case here. We're seeing some throwback aggro Rogue here with, we have the Buccaneer, we have the Shadow Step, some really unusual cards here. And Greensheep is 1 game away from going to the Bahamas and punching his ticket to the championship.
Yeah, and this, like you mentioned, this is a Rogue deck that is very aggressive and thus matches up a lot differently against decks like, say, Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior is super good against Miracle Rogue because, well, they don't really do all that much, and you can just punch them in the face until they die. This is a matchup where you could actually potentially get, say, an Argent Squire down, cold-blooded, and, I'll just kill your Frothing Berserker here. So we are getting into this game. Game number 3 could be the last game for pokrovac in this tournament. Came in as the #1 seed, but he cannot drop another game. Very strong start, though, from pokrovac here. Buccaneer on 1, followed up by Nazas First Mate and a pair of Bloodseal Cultists.
Yeah, but Rogue has the backstab with his own small-time Buccaneer, and that's exactly the start that you're looking for. Backstab and Pirate gives you the advantage because now you have that weapon. pokrovac in an awkward spot already here.
Yeah, in games that are largely decided or determined by these early minions, the ability to kill them for 0 mana with backstab can just totally swing the pace of the game immediately. And crucially, Green Sheep removes that pirate, leaving pokrovac with no way to enable his Bloodsail Cultist.
Whoa. Nice draw here from
That's a great draw, though. Frothing Berserker is a serious threat in this matchup. Really only Eviscerate can handle the Frothing Berserker very easily. We do see that there is Eviscerate in Green Sheep's hand, but he's just going to go ahead and coin out a Tomb Pillager.
Thank you.
Yeah, so double Tomb Pillager gives Green Sheep very much a fighter's chance here. Pokrovac picks up the South Sea deck.
That is a huge draw for pokrovac here. He's able to kill the Tomb Pillager and throw his Frothing Berserker to 7 power, or 6 power, sorry. One of those was a weapon attack. And that is, the kind of start that he needs to really put a ton of pressure on Green Sheep. We did mention that Green Sheep's deck is a bit more aggressive. There's a lot more early game action, but it still does not come back from behind in any really tremendous sense. Though that revenge that he just picked up of a Swashbuckler, that could be a kind of amusing twist if we get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like a good and a bad thing. Yes, you use revenge to clear the board, but you're also at 12 health.
Yeah, you're pretty low.
Yeah, and a deck that punishes you.
Warriors can be at 12 and then start armoring up. You're a rogue. You don't have that option.
It's true. One of the nice things about that ability for pokrovac to get that weapon of South Sea deckhand, you can see pokrovac is really happy, is that Bloodsail Cultist wasn't actually even dealt with. So, he's able to get even more pirate synergy onto the board here, which is massive.
And yeah, another Cultist and a Bloodsail Raider. So suddenly Green Sheep is enormously behind. You see a little figure over that revenge. It's like, okay, can this save me somehow? But
yes and no.
It's gonna be tough.
Is it really the card you're looking for? I mean, Green Sheep would wish that card was more like a Brawl, for example. Yeah. That would probably be exactly what he needs here. And Green Sheep, thinking about whether or not he needed to do more with his Swashbuckler. Do you think there was credence to use Shadow Step? Because what is he also going to use Shadow Step in his hand for?
Well, I think he was thinking about whether he wanted to either Shadow Step and maybe get another card, or potentially backstab the 3/4 on the board. So if it did attack into his minion, he could attack with his weapon and kill it.
That's also a fair assessment too. Right now, looks like Green Sheep has the South Sea deckhand. Not really doing much here.
He can use a backstab to clear off one of these minions with the South Sea deckhand.
Oh, and he can pair revenge with that too.
Yeah, he could. Well, he can't quite get low enough to trigger revenge here.
Well, you can use it just for 1 damage.
It's true, but I don't know that 1 damage is going to be enough. I think he may need some more help here. He has backstab.
Thank you.
But he can't quite get everything here, and I think he needs everything.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. It's a little bit too awkward. Green Sheep does not have any Gatchan option here. The most expensive card in his deck is a Leroy Jenkins, and everything else is cheaper. Sir Finley comes into the hand, and a strong hero power such as Steady Shot could end up winding down the game. At the same time, we do have to show you that pokrovac is at 18 health, so if he's not careful, say he takes Life Tap here, not able to close out the game. He doesn't. But, what if Green Sheep got the very classic Leroy Jenkins Shadow Step combination?
Pirate's Code.
It'd be too expensive, but you have to be mindful of how much health you have, too, as the warrior.
And now pokrovac debating, okay, do I want to try and retain this board? Do I want to trade? It looks like he may just be going, oh no, he's gonna attack in.
Whoa.
That is a lot of damage to his own face, down to 13. Also leaves Green Sheep at 11. He can play
the second coin.
The coin off of the,
Oh my goodness, if he got Leroy Jenkins, he actually would have won the game. I forgot about the second coin.
The coin off of the pillager here. So he does get a revenge. You see a raise of the eyebrows there from pokrovac.
Yeah.
And yeah, suddenly his entire board is gone.
This game's not over just yet.
It's still looking good for pokrovac. He has a minion on board that Green Sheep can't deal with immediately. And he has a hero power that does damage.
He needs
and currently Green Sheep's hand is just air.
Oh, and that's it.
Yep, Mortal Strike will close it out. So pokrovac, he's not done yet. Going to game number 4.
Man, that's a scary moment here. pokrovac actually gave an out for Green Sheep to win the game, and he's aware of that possibility too, because he gave his opponent 2 coins throughout the process of the game, on top of the coin that he already had. So, you have to be really cautious sometimes. Yes, you push for the win, but at the same time, maybe you don't really play around it because it's really unlikely. And if you put your opponent on that 2-turn lethal, you have that opportunity to also just close the game out that much faster because you know that he's also an aggressive deck.
Yeah, it's worth noting that if he gave him potentially another turn, I don't know that he would have really had the ability to close out the game if he ran into the revenge if he had actually just made the trade. If he had a little bit less damage. As it turned out, it just narrowly would have left him in lethal range and ended up working out.
Yeah, and one of those scenarios too that we said that even though swashbuckler cards can have such a big range, it ended up just being ineffective. No matter, even if you got like the high value revenge. So one of those things where Rogue just still struggles with the warrior, even if its own aggressive start. And Rogue had a really good ideal opening too. It had backstab, it had pirates, even had the double Tomb Pillager. What more could you ask for in that matchup?
Yeah. All right. Well, we are into the next game. pokrovac on Reno Mage. Greensheep again playing his last deck, that aggro Rogue.
Yeah, and that was the most important win for pokrovac because Reno Mage and Reno Warlock, they're supposed to kill aggressive decks. The Pirate Warrior is always one of those question marks that you're never sure if it's able to win what should be a 50-50.
I think that matchup's still good for Pirate Warrior in general because you have great early removal for the small minions. You have better weapons, better sort of mid-sized minions as well. But Greensheep here, I do think this is going to be just a faster clock, like a much faster clock than you generally run into playing against a rogue deck. So pokrovac is going to need to find his survival tools much faster.
Okay, so pokrovac chooses to hero power. Really needs to save his coin for a more timely use of it, whether it's playing Kazakus or finding a way to answer this big threat. But the South Sea Captain is pumping up that small-time Buccaneer to very threatening levels.
So pokrovac is going for the coin Kazakus. I'm curious to see what cost he goes for. He's going for a 1, and this is important. I think he took 2 damage to all, or maybe 3 damage to 1. Those both were offered as options, but he's going to be facing potentially another captain and a deckhand this turn.
Right.
Which is just an absolutely massive amount of damage that also makes it much more difficult to remove any of Greensheep's minions. If he does have the 3 damage to 1, because he didn't get 3 damage to 2 damage, which makes it a lot harder for him to, there it is, summon a friendly minion, deal 3. So the only minion that, or rather his 2 minions have died this game, assuming this Kazakus goes down, and it will. He's actually not going to be playing the South Sea Captain here. Interesting. I'm curious as to Greensheep's thought process here, wanting to play the Ardent Squire instead.
I think Greensheep has caught on to the fact that pokrovac picked a 1-mana potion and is trying to go for this dramatic tempo swing. So he was trying to play around the fact that his opponent might have AoE of some kind.
Right, but the only AoE is 2 damage, which you're actually better against by playing the second South Sea Captain.
You're right, because you actually buff the board
even if he took 2 damage to all and 3 damage to 1 minion, he couldn't kill, he actually would only kill one of the captains and wouldn't kill the Buccaneer if he'd played captain.
Yes, because the Buccaneer would be out of range then.
Ooh, Flame Strike is a bad hit from the Swashbuckler there. Not really what this game's going to be about at all. And Greensheep looking to trade here. Keeps the Baran off the board, doesn't want to see something like double Refreshment Vendor, which is exactly one of the options pokrovac has in his hand.
So pokrovac, with a really important turn here, looking to see if he needs to stall with Frost.
He's got a Nova.
He does. It's just too slow to play the Refreshment Vendor.
And this, is taking away a big minion from Greensheep's board, slowing him down significantly. Ooh, but the Horse Rider, that clock's adding up. For pokrovac, he does not have Reno Jackson in his hand. Only the Refreshment Vendor. He's down to 9. There is enough damage on the board. Ooh, the weapon being gone too. No opportunity for Harrison value. If he Refreshment Vendors, he goes to 12. He cannot remove any damage from this board with his hero power because there's no 1 health minions. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 represented by Greensheep here. So if you Refreshment Vendors, he's exactly out of range on the board.
Well, Shaku can draw from the Mage collection of spells.
There's a lot of damaging spells for the Mage and a lot of damaging cards left in Greensheep's deck.
Yeah, and you have to also account for the fact that Greensheep's just going to probably draw on average damage. So pokrovac choosing to reduce damage by, looks like 5 here on the board. Just a little bit more than Refreshment Vendor would have given him. And Greensheep was going to get off the top. He has just a deck full of damage.
And Soulcaster. An interesting one.
It's a minion.
Hey, he can put a charger in his deck if he wants. Just gonna go face with the hero power. Wants to leave as many of just his straight up burn spells available.
Thank you.
It's gonna be really hard for pokrovac to remove everything, but he still has Reno Jack's a possibility.
Barrier plus refreshment vendor is big.
Okay. Yeah.
That gives him an additional 12 life effectively to work with here.
He's at 15. His opponent has 11. Still with an opportunity to draw yet again with Shaku. Or Swashbuckler.
2 more mage cards. And the fact that it's barrier means for Greensheep that he could find lethal this turn. Ice Lance, ooh, if Swashbuckler finds a Frostbolt, or another Ice Lance, Arcane Explosion. These are just not good pickups for Greensheep off the Shaku. Not stealing the cards he wants.
Mage has such a wide range of damage spells and just not hitting them at all. But Greensheep's still in a good position. But all he's doing is hoping that his opponent can't
don't Reno.
get the Reno Jackson.
I think he's debating the Manic here. There's also just the threat, pokrovac is going into a stage of the game where, now things like Flame Strike or Blizzard are a huge threat as well.
It's true. I think he's been in that position for several turns now, so I think he can assume his opponent doesn't have it.
It only costs
Gonna get the Manic out there. Does put the Horse Rider as expected.
Yep.
And he's gonna use the Ice Lance just to shut down the attack of the Refreshment Vendor.
Yeah. This is the best follow-up to Reno if his opponent has it. Greensheep taking his hands off the mouse, realizing that this is his best chance.
Oh, he finds Ice
Block. And a Blizzard.
And a Blizzard, so Ice Block will guarantee him another turn. And then Blizzard after that will, unfortunately, not shut down the damage because there's at least the weapon from Greensheep. He will be able to break him at 1. First goes Shaku.
Face of Summoners, just more board presence.
Yeah, and this is making it more difficult for pokrovac to win if he does find the Reno, because he needs to gain life and then deal with the board.
It's interesting that pokrovac pings the 1/1 because you're going to get popped at 1 health anyways. And I feel like if you're going to be blizzarding next turn, you have to set up for the best possible scenario. You're letting cards like some of these other minions survive, or maybe that's the plan. You want a board to be filled so that way your opponent has less board space to play chargers.
Yeah. And it looks like Greensheep may be choosing not to play the Face of Summoner, wants to ensure they have a spot open, and we see he's just praying. Hands together.
Can Azure Drake pull something miraculous?
I don't think
for
there is a way out for pokrovac here.
No, he's played his Babbling Book, and that should wrap it up here. I don't really see a way for pokrovac to do it. He's targeting his own face, and Greensheep is going to
that excitement from the young British player. He played in BlizzCon 2014, made it all the way to the World Championship. He's been kind of laying low behind the scenes for a while, but he is the first player to qualify for the Winter Championship in the Bahamas.